Hello and welcome to the NFS Highlight Show with your host, me, Isaac Barrington. And joining me today, we have Henrique De Carmo and Juan Tapia Owens. Good to see you both. Henrique, I'll start with you if your first time joining us. Just firstly, what have you thought of the overall tier one of the NFS so far this season and what you've taken in from it?
Thank you, Isaac. Pleasure to be on. Yeah, I thought it's been a quite a competitive season. With Helvetia dropping out at the beginning of the season, people were kind of speculating that it won't be as competitive as last. I disagreed. I think it's been uber competitive. With the Manchesters, with the Bloomsbury fighting. Couple of draws, couple of wins, couple of losses either way. So it's been really competitive, even at the bottom half of the table as well. York and Wessex doing really well at the moment. So it's been good. I'll be really interested to see how the playoff goes and see who gets that top spot.
Yeah, it's certainly all still to play for, isn't it, Juan? And just overall, what were your thoughts on the weekend's games and this latest round of fixtures in Tier 1?
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a different weekend without, of course, leaders Manchester not being there. A few surprises in terms of how many goals were probably scored this weekend. High goal scoring weekend, which is probably not a good sign defensively in some cases and for goalkeepers. But very competitive games. I feel like referees were definitely being a little bit probably harsher this week as they've been in probably previous weeks and looking to stamp out certain things. Of course, with the York game, 4 10-meter penalties. I think there was a lot of yellow cards even in a game like Bloomsbury Wessex, where very one-sided game, but a lot of yellow cards on both sides. So definitely very feisty and like I said, a lot of goals scored.
Yeah, lots of goals scored, which we'll show to everyone watching shortly. Let's get straight into it. In actual fact, our first game up now is all from the Repton Sports Centre, of course, but Derby's host venue, the Repton Sports Centre. It's Derby against Loughborough Students. And joining us now, we have Loughborough boss Jose Lorente. Jose, good to see you. A great win for your team in this game. Brilliant performance and a good 3 points against a Derby team who, of course, won the week before. So they were coming into the game off the back of a good result. How big is it for your team to win this one?
For us, it was really important to get these 3 points. We were having a really bad results, losing against Bolton, Bloomsbury, Manchester, and not having the result against Harbury or Wessex. So it was a long time without getting the 3 points. So it was having a knock-on effect on the players. And it was quite important to bring everyone together on the game as we did and see ourselves getting the 3 points at the end of the 40 minutes.
Brilliant.
Obviously, going 1-0 down in the first 2 minutes, though, it must have been difficult, especially with what you just talked about. Derby coming into this game in high spirits and you less so. So how was it? How did you guys manage to turn it around after that first goal went in?
I think we got the confidence on us. That goal probably could bring some demons back into the team. I believe we conceded quite early against Manchester. We conceded quite early against Bloomsbury. We conceded that goal against Derby early. Before that was a crossbar. So put ourselves in a position that we need to really wake up. And I think after that, the first goal, we cannot turn the things around. We start having the ball a little bit more and see ourselves with the confidence to going forward and start dominating the tempo of the game. And finally, we get the first goal and lucky with the second goal. I think a mistake from the keeper and a good finish for Kalen put ourselves on a good position for the rest of the game.
Yeah, you could definitely see the difference after the first goal went in, and obviously it was 4-1 at half time. With Fabio scoring that goal before half time. How important has he been for you guys this season? Obviously, he's one of the elder statesmen in the group. He's been there for 3 years, I believe now. How important is he this season, especially for you guys?
Fabio is a player to give us that experience, knowing where we are. Okay, all of them are 21, 22 years old, but he's one of the players who gives us that peace of mind, knows how to manage the tempo a little bit better than the rest, and he's passing that knowledge to the youngest, who the players who only got one season on tier one, to help us to keep those momentum on the games. And I think you can see when the elders are not doing that job and when the oldest they are not managing the game, is when the games for us don't go into the right way. So it's important for us to have people like Fabio.
And what was a challenge going into the game on your pre-match thoughts with Derby and how they defend? What was the game plan going into it and how to break them down?
Our plan was enjoy the game. After so many defeats and knowing that we don't got the pressure to go to the top 4, it doesn't depend on us. We need to do our job, but even doing our job, we depend on Maidenhead losing 1 or 2 games. So the main thing was, guys, let's going to enjoy. Let's going to get the ball. Let's going to try to find the net and try to get back together. As in any team, when you're not winning, that having an effect on the players and the confidence and the attitude towards the games is different. So this win, it was quite important for us as a group more than the league.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm interested just on that point, Jose, as well. You said about enjoyment and all of that and focusing more on being in the moment and how it doesn't depend on you. A lot of the goals you scored, you had a lot of bodies beyond the ball and a lot of bodies in and around that final third, which caused a lot of tap-ins or some very good finishes as well. Is that something that you worked on in the league in the week going up to that about getting bodies inside the box?
It's something that we have been working for a long time, but like I said before, by not winning the games, due to people not doing that job, if the winner have the ball and is threatening to go 1v1, you always want the opposite winner to make the room to get to the back post. When your mentality is not 100% positive because you see yourself you're not winning the games, you don't end up doing that job. So it's a lot of reinforce that how important is being there on those positions. And against Derby, we managed to get that, getting into those back post position, getting that support, going with 3 players on the countercast as much as we could. And we see the benefit from doing that. So hopefully something that we can transfer on the next week to the semi-final, which is going to be important.
Yeah, and then that second half, really, Derby had to execute fly keeper a lot, and I'm just interested in how much of your experience of playing them over basically the 4th time this year, including Bucks as well, in terms of those situations. I know that Sam Meisel scored last time you faced him in Bucks from defending the fly, and this time he managed to get another goal. How crucial was that experience of playing against them 3 or 4 times over this season when they went fly?
I think that gives us an advantage. Like you said, we played 4 times, and every time we played and they used the fly keeper, we have been able to see in fair hand how that has been evolved from the first time they did in September to yesterday. They have improving in what they wanted to do, but we analyze what was the strength for them, how they looking go from Liam to Matt, if they managed to get shots, and that was the main focus on can we stop the ball across so they don't get the chance to have a shot.
Yeah, no, as I say, and just finally, I want to really touch on your experiences this year in balancing both NFS, NFS2, of course, with the Loughborough B and all the Bucks competitions as well, and how have you found it this year, especially for you and for the players, with that new hybrid model? Because personally, I can say that we found it very difficult this year, and just want to know how your players are coping and how you're really coping with balancing those different competitions.
It's been challenging, trying to balance everything. We got quite a short squad on tier 2. We got a decent squad on tier 1, and I believe most of the players doing tier 1 also do backs. So at the beginning of the year, it was a really hard job to try to get all the games on a perfect synchrony, where if we play at home for backs, try to play at home for backs as well. For NFS. It's been challenging for the tier 2 team because I didn't manage to be on the game day with them for the first half of the season. So this second half of the season, I'm going to be with them more. They see a benefit. I'm really lucky to have James going with me on the first half, supporting with the tier 2. But it's not always easy to get all the games, so I can attend all of them. But I think we did quite all right. And obviously the results at the tier 2 fighting to be on that top 4 spot with Liverpool. Obviously today we got a little loss against Bolton, being tough game. But hopefully they will get the results on the next 3 games, same as the tier 1.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jose, and congratulations on your 3 points and getting back to winning ways.
Thank you, guys.
So great to hear from Jose Llorente there, the Loughborough boss. Henrique, it was a good performance from Loughborough against a stern Derby team who said themselves that Derby were feeling quite confident going into the game. And Jose said pre-match that he thought it was going to be a difficult game. It did turn out that way in one sense, but the scoreline might not have suggested that. What did you make of the game and how Loughborough performed?
I really enjoy watching Loughborough. I think they're actually quite a really entertaining squad, and youthful players. You know, they're always going to come with some energy. And Derby the same as well this season. They've proved that they've got a lot of energy in there and some good 1v1 players and stuff like that. But I thought, you know, when Loughborough got a grip to the game, I think you kind of saw that it was going to go their way. Even after conceding first, they kind of put out a more mature performance than they have done in the last previous weeks, and that's thanks to, you know, some of their senior players like the Fabios and the Neil Morgans and stuff like that to kind of rallying the troops. And Jose looked quite confident there, you know, talking about having fun, stuff like that, which is really important. So yeah, it was a good performance from Loughborough. Maybe slightly disappointing from Derby that they couldn't carry on their good form, but see how they do the next game.
Yeah, and Juan, I think you touched on the goals that Loughborough scored in the interview there with Jose. Just I think 3 or 4 of them were back post finishes for Loughborough in that game. Real close range finishes, well worked team moves. They seem to be playing much more free flowing futsal yesterday.
Yeah, I think they really punished Derby in transitions and in what you call fast attacks on break of line, and they managed to get a lot of bodies beyond the ball and in around the ball, and just having more bodies around that D area if the ball was to land in there as well. Quite clinical off set pieces. Again, we have seen Derby struggle a little bit in terms of defending set pieces over the course of the season. And then I think just that experience probably from playing Derby 3-4 times throughout the season in NFS and in Bucks probably just paid dividends in that second half through defending the fly. Sam Meisel getting on the score sheet again against Derby, which he has done previously in Bucks. So I think probably from Jose, really good game to encapsulate probably what he said that been working on for the last few weeks in terms of those quick moments and those transition moments in getting bodies back post and more people around to finish those opportunities as well.
Yeah, right then. Brilliant stuff. Moving on to our next game, which is York Vikings taking on Maidenhead United. And joining us now, we have Maidenhead United's Josh Gillespie. Josh, good to see you, mate. A really big win for your team in terms of the overall scoreline. How did you feel at the end of the game?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me. Positive result. Obviously, we went there knowing we needed to get 3 points. Came away with 3 points in the big scoreline. So at the end of the day, pretty happy. Up and down as the game went on, some positives, some negatives as always, things to learn, but happy with the result.
Brilliant. Obviously, conceded very, very early on there. It's like 2 minutes into the game. What were your personal thoughts after conceding that first goal?
Yeah, it's a funny start, really. It can happen sometimes. We started pretty strongly in the first sort of 30 seconds, minute, had them pinned back, a couple of set pieces, corners, etc. Shots on goal. So it was a decent start, but then obviously they score a goal through good play, but a slight defensive error from us. But conceding that early in the game for me is always just stay calm, stay composed, stick to the game plan, keep going on, and yeah, just crack on. Really, nothing changed.
Yeah. So Diogo scored a hat trick for you guys. Obviously, got your first goal as well. Obviously, joined kind of later on in the season. How does it feel like for you personally to have him in the team as such a good 1v1 player?
Oh, great. Diogo's been class for us. He signed in the summer, lots of experience, lots of flair. Took a little while to adapt and sort of come to terms with how we play and what we do, but I think now we found a role for him which really suits him, and I think we're seeing the player he can be. Certainly in the last few games since Christmas, he's he's really started performing and scoring goals and having big influence, getting lots of assists. He had a game, we played Bloomsbury in the Cup, and he was our standout performer in that game. Scored a couple of goals, had real influence, and since then he's just sort of got better every week. And he's got doing everything we want him to do now. He's securing the ball, he's getting other people involved, getting assists, getting goals. So he's been really good for us.
Yeah, and just lastly, 5-3 at half time. Obviously, going on to the second half, it was a much different scoreline. But what was the Gaffers' halftime team talk after the 5-3?
So we knew what York were about. We know they tend to start strong, particularly in the first half, but second half as well, which is what they did. They came out strong, tried to press us, played quite intense, which we anticipated. It was the same in the first game when we played them earlier in the season. Came out really strong, and I think maybe just a bit of an experience, or they've obviously got a very young squad. They did really well for sort of 25 minutes of the game, 30 minutes of the game, with the experience they have. But I think experience just paid off by the end. So although there were things in the first half we weren't completely satisfied with, and there was maybe a little bit of hairdryer treatment at half time, we weren't shocked with how they started, and that it was fairly tight at half time. We knew as the game went on it was going to suit us more, and we hoped that our experience would sort of show later in the game.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers.
Yeah, and in that second half, Josh, I know that towards the game it kind of broke, and then you got into double digits quite quickly after that sort of like teething period in that second half. It seemed to be a lot of 2v1s, and you seem to be very clinical with those as well. Was that a real message going into that second half to get bodies forward on the break of line?
Yeah, transitions is something we've spoken about during the first half and at half time. We didn't think we were effective enough in our transitions, both attacking and defensively. And it's something we've worked on quite a lot over the last few months, training wise. So it's really good to see us transition well, certainly going forwards and get some goals in those transitional moments, playing direct, playing quickly, 1-2 touches, finding the back posts and finishing there. So that was really satisfying to see. And it was also satisfying to see our defensive transitions sort of improved and maintained as the game went on. I think when you run up a scoreline like that, it's easy to sort of forget to defend and forget to transition defensively sometimes. So it was good to see the guys still do that, even in the latter stages of the game. Really helped us to sort of run up that score and not concede in the latter stages.
Yeah, and of course they racked up nine fouls in that second period as well. What were your sort of messages around targeting certain individuals? I know that Romero then received a red card. How did you adapt into that 4v3, and what were your messages around really trying to punish them on sort of that lack of discipline in terms of fouls?
So the 4v3 specifically, the message was be patient. And then the guys went and scored within, I think it was 8 seconds. So they obviously didn't listen. But fair play, it was a nice goal, another Diogo goal. It was some really nice play from Aaron Carter as well in there. So that was great. And the message didn't really change particularly. We wanted to be aggressive, play on the front foot, and look for those isolations, those 1v1s in the right areas of the court. And yeah, it's just more emphasised, obviously, when a team's on 5 fouls. Suited us how aggressive they were playing as well. They kind of, in a situation like that, kind of anticipated them to drop off a little bit and play slightly less aggressively, but they didn't. They kept playing, kept coming out at us. So fair play to them in a way, but at the same time, it kind of played into our hands that they were committing fouls sort of in our third, and in the middle section of the court, which maybe weren't necessary. So gave us opportunities from the 10-metre penalty line, and the guys took them. To be fair, 4 out of 4 isn't bad.
Yeah, and just lastly, I want to ask you personally around your sort of, after the sad news of sort of the injury that you got, that sort of knocked you out of the season. How have you felt? How have you found sort of transitioning from player into coach? I know they might only be temporary, but given such an injury and having that blessing that you've now gone into a coaching role, how have you found it? And is it something that you're going to look to maybe stay in a little bit longer?
Oh yeah. So first of all, obviously, when you get injured, get a serious injury like that, obviously ruptured my ACL, it was obviously devastating. Obviously, I've been at this club for 6 or 7 years now. worked hard over that period, all as a group, to sort of get ourselves into Tier 1, into a position to be where we are. So to get here and get, I can't even remember the games I played now, 2 or 3 league games it was, and then to get the injury was obviously not ideal. I was fortunate in a weird way, obviously not for the other guys, but we've had a bit of a misfortune this year. We've had a few guys do the same thing. I'm sure you guys all know Joe Huxter. He was at us. He played for us through the youth system, went off to Loughborough, and then he came back this summer. Really excited to get him on the court and get playing, and he did the same thing in his first game this season. We had another guy, Geordie, who's ruptured his ACL, and then we've had a few other injuries as the season's gone on, fairly serious ones. So, it's good to have company. Misery loves company, so that's definitely helped me. And then the opportunity sort of presented itself over Christmas, where we lost Sam, to sort of step up and help the team in a different way, which has kind of been a blessing in disguise for me. Keeps me busy, gives me something to do, and since then it's just been learning, massive learning every day, every training session, every game, just learning constantly. I'm lucky enough that I'm surrounded by loads of good guys, lots of experienced guys. Rich has been great. The senior players have been great. Phil, Lan, Braden Lissington, all those guys sort of helped me through it and helped me through that transitional phase. So that's been great, and definitely wouldn't have been as easy without them. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. Found my feet a bit now. The first few sort of weeks, few games were a bit more tough, a bit more rabbit in headlights, sort of thrown into the deep end. But now, yeah, sort of found my feet. I think the guys have all been really supportive, are really on board with what we're trying to achieve. And I think what's been a real benefit is this sort of continuity. Is I've been at the club for a long time. I'm not come in and tried to dramatically change anything. Just very much going along with the principles we've had for a long time, just emphasising certain points, trying to put my stamp on it where I can. So no, it's good. I'm hoping to get back on the court at some point, but we'll see how it goes. Coaching was sort of in the back of my mind in the future anyway. I hoped it wouldn't be this early, but it is what it is. Make the best of that situation.
I agree. Good. Cheers.
Brilliant, Josh. Thanks a lot for joining us, and good luck, of course, in your continued recovery as well, and heading into the business end of the season now with Maidenhead. Thank you.
Thanks very much, and cheers what you're doing. Love it.
So great to hear there then from Josh Gillespie of Maidenhead United. 17 goals in that game, 13 of them for his team. Henrique, what did you make of their performance? Obviously, it ran away from York in the second half after the sending off of Ramiro.
Yeah, I think, Maidenhead's performance was great. I think they were clinical. He talked about, going into halftime, maybe a little bit of hair dry treatment, so that probably worked. But yeah, quite clinical, and they were disciplined. They were, unlike York, they weren't making many mistakes. They were punishing on transitions, which is very important for any good futsal team to do. So yeah, it was a good performance from Maidenhead. I think coming back off the back of some other great performances against like Manchester and stuff like that. So I think they're my dark horse for the remainder of the season. In terms of York, it's disappointing again. I think Josh alluded to kind of that young squad and how much that plays a part, and how much are they actually trained together as a full squad in terms of the players that are coming up from London and stuff like that. I think that definitely makes a difference. And it's hard when you're losing all the time. How can you kind of get up from that slump? But overall, loads of goals is what you want to see. Bet the highlights will be a long one. So yeah, it was a good game.
Yeah, and Juan, just going back to the qualities that Maidenhead have shown this season, how surprised have you been with how well they performed? Obviously, coming up to Tier 1 as a newly promoted team, probably their initial aim, I'd imagine, was to assert themselves as a Tier 1 side. But now kicking on towards the playoffs, how impressive has that been for you?
I think they've made some decent signings to sort of top off experience that they already had. Like they've got a lot of Super League, if you want to call it, experience, or Tier 1 experience with Seth Burkitt, Ben Laz, and then of course Joe Huxter coming in for them at the start of the season, Harry Tozer. All of those players are just going to add a little bit of element, and you saw that in the first few game weeks at the start of the season. It's a shame that they sort of fell trapped to a few injuries, like Josh mentioned, quite a lot of long-term injuries, and it'll be interesting to see where they could have been if those injuries hadn't have happened. But say they play a good style of futsal in possession and out of possession. They've got a good group there. They've got great people around the club. Rich has done an incredible job when it was Reading Royals and now into Maidenhead, and Maidenhead are an incredible club and community that they can really build off that. And they've started to do stuff like that with the academy. So it'll be interesting if they can get top four. That'll be a massive achievement for them this season, and really where they can take it next season if they can further that with some more signings. If Josh transitions into coaching full time, and really what that can look like. And like you said, put his touch on that squad. I think they do need a pivot to vary that up a little bit, because their 4-0 is good, and it'll be interesting to see what they can do with those couple of signings next season as well.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you both. Moving on to our next game then, which is the reigning champions Bloomsbury in action against an in-form Wessex side. And joining us for this game now, we have Bloomsbury skipper Richard Ward. Wardy, good to see you. How was your perspective of the game, and how did you see things from your point of view? Obviously, another 3 points and back to winning ways.
Thanks, Isaac. Good to see you too. I think it was a good game. 2-0 at half time. First half, Essex kept it really tight. Like I said before the game, we know they've improved a lot since previous seasons, and they've been on a good run of form. So it was good to really turn the gear second half and actually start to see a lot of the stuff we've been practicing training come out in the game. In particular, seeing players like Talua come back, looking back to his best sort of 10 years ago when he was in his early 30s. That was a real positive for us to take from the game, and a few others did really well as well.
Brilliant, thank you.
Hi, Woody. Just looking back into that first half, obviously, like you said, 2-0, nice and tight. How did you feel like Wessex performed in that first half, and what made the scoreline kind of that tight 2-0?
Well, I think bringing in two former England internationals in Nathan Davis and George Nash, they definitely improved the level for Wessex. You can tell Nathan hasn't been playing futsal; he's been playing his football, but he's still, got aspects, especially his defending is really strong. So he helped secure it at the back. Nash, he appeared more as a pivot, which is a bit of a surprise to us, but he's got quality on the ball, great at securing it. So they definitely added a few strings to their bow.
Obviously, you popped up for goal in that first half. Do you want to talk us through that toe poke finish?
I'd love to, yeah. So T, as everyone knows, we like the high press. T did really well as that middleman to anticipate and intercept. He threw an absolutely delicious little back heel, and then I've miscontrolled it and then towed it in the corner, luckily. So it was a nice game of lucky finishes for me.
And obviously, the other goal scored by the Northern Irishman himself. How important is he to your team? Obviously, we can see on the court how he is, but off the court as well. Like what kind of person and what kind of aspects does he bring to Bloomsbury?
Yeah, Connor's a top bloke. Off the court, I think it definitely translates on the court. He's a massive leader. You see that with the Northern Ireland performances where he is the absolute man. He's great to have around. Training, he comes a long way for it, so he's definitely dedicated. Looking at his finish, absolute top bins. That's what you get from Connor. I think he's got a lot to prove to himself. I think more than anyone else, because I think everyone knows how much of a good player he is. But he's definitely still hungry to keep kicking on and improving. And it's great to have him in our team. Like we've said all along, we've got the best pivots in the league in our team in Calvin and Connor. So I think they're huge assets to have.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, right, Wardy. Just wanted to follow on from that. A comment around the pivots as well. He scored a couple of nice goals using the pivot second half, and sort of the spaces created through the pivot as well with the Jamie Brooker assist as well. How much importance do they give you in terms of being able to, number one, alleviate pressure, but also number two, create goals as well?
I think, part of the new regime, really. I think getting rid of the old manager, getting the new one in, has been a real breath of life for us. Pivots have been invigorated by that, and I think you can see that in their performances. I think, they're just not being tied down in that old boring system has really freed them up. Obviously, I think we've got strength in all areas of the field, so the kind of more we can let the other three players play, and stretch the game as a pivot is a big strength for us. That's no surprise. But yeah, Calvin in particular again against Manchester, although we lost, he performed well, getting back into those futsal minutes. And Connor, like I've already said, he's going to score you know, a minimum of a couple of goals every other couple of games, so he's massive asset. And then I can shank them in. So there's always strength in those areas.
Yeah, no, and especially how are you finding that new role, sort of being between playing as a pivot and being played as a winger, as well as I know that Calvin and Connor are also rotating, playing as pivots and wingers as well.
Well, I'm desperate to play as a winger, but no one lets me. They get quite irate when I actually try and fill around, so it's really on me to try and keep the depth. That's probably what I did like about the old regime. The previous manager we had was a bit more encouraging, you know, letting me come in as a false sometimes. But you know, I think he just understands the game better, and he's keen for me to stay high as a pivot. He sees that benefit. So you know, got to respect the new manager really.
Yeah, and I know that we spoke recently around you guys in terms of going on to and looking at the Champions League and how you found that last summer as well. How do you find these games sort of compare to that experience as well?
Yeah, I mean, you're giving a bit of insight into the message I sent to you after the game. It's tough, you know. We're playing a game. I think Wessex first half, if they could have kept that consistency for the full game, then I think that's good reps for for what that Champions League level would be like. Obviously, we're talking compared to our season last season. There's absolutely no shoe in for us this year. Manchester definitely firmly out on top, and they basically secured the league. So we've got a long way to do in that regard. But in terms of how that can prepare you for the Champions League, you know, you're coming away with a 7-1 win. It's not representative, unfortunately. So really appreciate that Wessex have come on and kicked on a few gears. Need them to go on a few more, as a few other teams, to really make it a challenge week in, week out. Because yeah, I don't want to be playing 7-1 games.
Yeah, and what are your behaviours like in that game? I know there's a few shots on camera and conversations that you're having with players, as well as some incidents that you've had to clear up as well. Like, what are your conversations like on the bench with other players in those games in particular, in terms of demanding of the standards?
Exactly that. It's trying to get everyone to hold each other accountable. You know, making sure that when some player spots that something's working, they're communicating that. That was a key thing for us. Russ, for example, spotted that the game wasn't complicated and we were making it that in the first half. He said, we need to break lines. Not everyone's caught that message. So I think part of my job is to make sure everyone's really drilled in and focusing on the simple things, because you're not going to make huge changes during the game. And other than that, if someone spots something, Jack Walsh is really good at it as well. Communicate it, make sure we're all on the same page. Having those little chats. Those little chats for me, I think this season, I think they're more and more important. I haven't really thought about it much in the past, but the more we can do that on the bench, encourage each other, that have the little comms, I think that'll just kick us on an extra gear, I think.
Perfect.
Wardy, thanks a lot for your time this evening. Congratulations on your win, and good luck moving forward as well. Thank you.
Cheers, chaps. Good to see you. Have a good night.
Great to hear there then from the Bloomsbury skipper, Richard Ward. Henrique, from a Wessex point of view, though, obviously a disappointing day at the office for them. They missed out the round of fixtures as it works with the 9-team league in Tier 1 now last time out. So they had an extra week to prepare for this game, but not the result that they were looking for. Do you think that they can bounce back from this now? Because obviously they hadn't been on poor form, they've been on really good form, but they hadn't faced a test as tough as that. So what do you think from their perspective after that game?
Yeah, I mean, you know, like you said, and like how everyone's been saying, Wessex has been on good form. You know, it's much better from last season, even the start of this season. Personally, you know, played against them for West London, and we beat them as a Tier 3 side at the start of the season, and they just look like a completely different team. I think, like Wardy said, you know, having signed those players like Nathan Davies makes a real big difference. We don't obviously know what's going on behind the scenes, but you can tell that they had some sort of effect in the kind of the attitude and the positivity around their game. In terms of futsal wise, I think they look a bit more mature. I think they're cutting the mistakes. I think if you look at the goals that they concede now, it's much less from individual mistakes and more like from other things. In terms of looking forward, I think Wessex should be proud of themselves to still have a confidence about them. you look at the results and you think, they can probably look at the games coming up. They could probably get a few results here and there. So yeah, definitely a positive place right now for Wessex.
And Juan, just going back to Bloomsbury as their former boss, of course, what did you make of the team performance at the weekend and obviously getting on the right side of a good scoreline for them?
Yeah, I think that disjointed first half, and I think it's going to be difficult off the back of the loss to Manchester, and then of course the draw to Bolton recently. I think it's very much now a case of preparing for playoffs and just making sure that the right things are being done, and also that you can try and test a few things out. A lot of players missing, of course, and then a few different combinations in terms of Connor starting as a pivot, Connor then playing as a winger, Talua back in the fold as well, and some different fours. So second half probably got into it a little bit more, probably played a little bit more vertically using Calvin, using the space that the pivots created as well with people driving into him. And then a good real test of defending fly keeper. Didn't start off well with Russ probably not readjusting slightly and tucking in, but then really good to get a couple of goals from defending that fly as well. So it'll give them confidence in terms of, like I said, preparing for playoffs and making sure that now they're ready for that.
Excellent. Thank you both. Moving on to our last game then in this highlight show, which is Hartpury up against Bolton, and we're joined for this one by Bolton goalkeeper Joe Payne. Joe, thank you for joining us. Just first of all, what did you think of the game? Another 3 points for your team. How did you feel you performed at the weekend?
Yeah, going into the game, we're always aware that our fixtures in the past with Hartpury have always been tight. We'd like to think that this season, especially, we've kind of separated ourselves away from being with that bottom, kind of like pushing for top four, and more being in conversation with Manchester. So that's kind of where we believe we're at. The game itself was tough. It always is. Very physical battle. A lot of experience in the Hartpury side. A few internationals that try to use their physicality to their strength. Big pivot in Jack Tyson. Experience with Dougie at the back as well as Sam. So we were fully prepared for what we're going into, and we're happy we took 3 points from the game.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, just to add on that first half, 3-1 at half time. Did it feel as comfortable as the scoreline suggests, or was it a little bit tighter?
I'll be honest, Enrique. I felt like at half time, we, as a team, felt we put in probably 4 good minutes into the first half. We arguably showed them a little bit too much respect at times. Almost always we were too afraid to get caught in individual battles. But the last 2-3 minutes of the first half, we scored a couple goals. That's kind of where we felt where we grew in confidence, and we felt like we had more control of the game. It's always difficult playing against a deep block. So yes, I would say we were comfortable. We had a lot of the ball. Dill made a few good saves. So as traditionally as being in control goes, we were in control of the game, but it never felt comfortable until we had that 2-goal cushion. And
in that first half, obviously you conceded that goal, Joe. How did that feel? I mean, do you feel like you could have done a little bit better there? What was your thoughts?
Yeah, like, I'm a big believer in, I think I can save everything, or try to save everything as best I can. If I haven't, I could have done something better. A ricochet off the post and coming off my leg to go in the goal is never ideal. But I've watched the clip back a couple of times. I think there's a couple of things that I can do. Maybe we can clear the set piece a little bit better from the beginning. But yeah, 100%. I always feel like I can do more, mate.
And obviously, Robbie with the 2 goals before half time. How important has he been for you guys this season?
I'll be completely honest with you. I think he's gone completely under the radar. And I can't believe I'll give him the credit saying this, but being at the recent England camp with seeing certain faces, new and old, when you actually look down the NFS and Tier 1, who's performing regularly week in, week out, and not just against the clubs at the lower end of the table, but also the Bloomsburys, Manchesters and Loughboroughs of the world. Robbie's right up there, and he's got an eye for goal. He's intense, and he can take the game by scruff off the neck. So credit to him. He was good again yesterday. He was brilliant again last week, and we want to keep seeing him playing.
Yeah, class. I totally agree with you. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, just in that second half, Payne, I know that it ended up being 1-1 effectively in the second half, and you guys were ahead and probably a little bit comfortable. How did you find sort of that second half went, especially after being in front and commanding in the first half. Must have been a little bit frustrating second half to not pull away a little bit more as well and take 10 minutes to get that sort of fourth goal.
100%, Juan. And as the consensus of the group was that we lost sight of what we were good at in the second half in terms of taking the ball away, enjoying it, playing our game. And we actually got into a little bit more of a transitional game that probably suits an out of possession team a lot more. They worked their way into fly, which we're familiar with and comfortable with, but we were very disjointed as a collective, with and without the ball. So trying to regroup when they went fly or trying to get behind the ball when they're in transition. We just weren't on our best A game on Sunday. But like you said, we didn't lose the half. It was 1-1. We feel like we don't want to put another performance like that in with a run into playoffs. We've got a great opportunity now to build on things that we've got weaknesses in, to grow on our strengths and to put a good performance in the last 3 games of the season running into the playoffs.
Yeah, and how do you guys go about planning, especially against a team like Hartbury that predominantly attack using Dylan? What things did you prep sort of pre-game and what conversations mid-game did you have?
Yeah, so I mean, based off recent performances from Hartbury, we actually felt like they weren't going to utilise the fly as much as what they have been known to in recent years. And I think that was true. So first half, we didn't really see it. Second half more so, but I think that's because of the nature of where the game went. But we prepared focus to be direct pivot to make sure that we win our individual battle at the back with the fix and the pivot, but also if the ball drops and they can take it under control, how we as a collective tried to swarm and get behind the ball. Like I said, we didn't feel like it was our best execution of the game plan in that sense. But away from there, more so we knew set pieces were going to be big for them. Corners, kick-ins, direct opportunities to shoot. They've got some strong shooters. So also making sure that we're covering the goal. 2 in the wall from kick-ins. Repton's a tighter court than most. So the likelihood of a shot coming off a kick-in is much higher. For me personally, as a goalkeeper, I want my wall set up early. And then if they decide to play off that and they don't shoot, we move when the ball moves.
Yeah, no, Joe, I'm just interested in terms of like how it's been this season in terms of course, you're sharing a lot of court time with Joe Bickerstaff, very similar to a lot of other teams are now doing with, I know at Bloomsbury we're sharing it between Simo and Jack, and Wessex and Maidenhead doing very similar. How has that been and what are the conversations like with you and Joe in game at training, and your relationship as well?
Yeah, so I suppose we'll start from the beginning, was where I joined Bolton in the 2019 season, when the NFS kicked off, and Bickers was there then, and obviously he was a young lad, just been in the 19s, and the dynamic was very different to what it is now. Obviously, 4 years on, going on 5 years, he's been away, claims a lot of court time at Loughborough, got a good reputation across the country, and he's a very good goalkeeper, mate. And I feel like everyone's in a position with how the NFS is structured, clubs in the country. We've got a lot of good goalkeepers and everyone wants to play at the best level. And it's about accommodating everyone as much as we can. Manchester do the same. We've got 4 good goalkeepers, arguably 5 in this small location geography. So yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, as a goalkeeper, you want to play every minute. And I think every player in the league would agree with me there. Everyone wants to play the minutes they can, but there's more to it and there's more involved, and there's a big commitment ask of players, of time and efforts that go into being part of this sport, and that also has to be considered too. So around the relationship, I mean, I love our relationship. Training's great. We try to be better. We're both very different goalkeepers as well, but we try to better each other, maybe in areas where he excels where I don't, or where I excel and he doesn't. So that accompanied with Logan, who's the goalkeeper for the development team, who's a fantastic goalkeeper. He'll be much better than I probably am when he's my age. And I think between the 3 of us, we've got a really nice dynamic of where we are, and we just want what's best for everybody.
Brilliant. Thank you, Joe. Really appreciate you joining us and your insight that you're giving us there. So thank you and good luck moving into the playoffs as well and for the end of the season. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Isaac. Bye-bye.
So then another 3 points for Bolton. Henrique, how do you rate their chances moving into the playoffs at the end of the season now as well, given the performances and the results that they've been getting?
Yeah, they narrowly missed it last time round, isn't it? I think that you can tell by just the way that Joe speaks and everyone else at the club that they're really itching to get into these promotion spots. And I think looking at how the season's gone so far, they deserve it. They're doing the right things on and off the court, bringing some young players in, and obviously, if you look at kind of the under-19s that are coming through, like a lot of them are coming from Bolton, so that's obviously a good sign. In terms of their actual chances, I think mathematically you can see that they have probably a really, really good chance of getting in there. So it can only really take something like a really, really bad spell to get them out of the places. And how well they're going to do, I'm not sure. I think they need to maybe, when they're having bad games, kind of pull the results out the bag. Sometimes they haven't done that, but in terms of actually getting into promotion, the playoff spots, I think they're right in contention.
Yeah, Juan, I think Cookie mentioned after the game in one of the post-match media that he did on site at Repton that he felt actually Bolton didn't play particularly well at the weekend, but got the result. I guess that's a sign of a good team, though, if they're still picking up the results, even if not really at their top performance.
Yeah, I think any game against Hartpury is going to be slightly difficult just based on the spaces that they probably give you. And Bolton, probably apart from Sam McGrath, lack that reference pivot, especially against those deeper block teams. So I think that they usually will thrive a little bit more against teams that either high press or mid block and sort of allow those spaces in behind. So yeah, naturally in possession, they struggled a little bit to probably create and verticalize. But like you said, they got the job done mainly off transition and probably details in that final third through pressing and their aggressive press, especially that Mikey Bulmer goal. But I think they'll be disappointed to concede the goal, especially in the first half, and then sort of that second half goal right at the end as well. So yeah, I think Cookie's correct, and I think going into sort of what Joe Payne was alluding to in terms of using those games to work on their weaknesses as well as their strengths. It'll be interesting to see what their takeaways were from the game, probably in possession against teams that probably sitting a little bit deeper. And then it'll be good to see how they use both keepers tactically going into playoffs, and whether it is half and half again, maybe one for the full game, or if they start to explore a little bit in terms of how to mix that.
Well, then, that's just about all we've got time for in terms of the highlights and interviews. But of course, moving on to the stage, which maybe some of you have been waiting for, the team of the week, which has been discussed between myself, Juan, and Enrique. So I'll start us off with a couple from our chosen team of the week. It was difficult to pick a goalkeeper this week, in fairness, but we've gone with Jack Walsh from Bloomsbury. I think a good performance. Obviously, only played the second half of Bloomsbury, but played well in that second half and got a couple of assists in there, I think, too. So, if a goalkeeper's going and getting you a couple of assists, then probably worth being in there. And Maidenhead's Diogo Luz, thought he performed really well at the weekend for Josh Gillespie and Richard Oxley's team. Obviously got himself a hat-trick, as did a couple of other Maidenhead players too, but I thought that was probably the best that I personally have seen Diogo play, and really took the game to the opposition at times and seemed to be playing with confidence. So yeah, Jack Walsh and Diogo Luz. Henrique, if you want to give us one.
Yeah, we're going with another Maidenhead player here with Aaron Carter. Obviously, you just said Diogo scored the hat trick. Aaron scored another one. Obviously, Harry Tozer scored one. Between those two, really a toss up. But I thought, Aaron really showed what he's about this game. I think, in terms of you look at, the people in the futsal world, Aaron Carter is not necessarily the name that comes into mind, but like this game, especially, that he showed what he's about, and very, very deservingly of the team of the week. A nice little 10-meter penalty there as well.
Yeah, and Juan?
Yeah, I think I'll go for Robbie Dean from Bolton. Really good game, and he's really coming to the front in the last few weeks. He's kind of in between that experienced part of the group and really those younger guys, and he's sort of probably going to lead the next 19s, given he's already had that experience. So for him to already be in that group, it's really nice to see him really come into his own in terms of, number one, pressing from the front, but also his finishing ability is really coming into play now and being a lot clinical in front of goal. So yeah, really exciting talent, and it'll be good to see where he can go over the next year with that 19s crop and with Bolton going into playoffs as well.
Yeah, brilliant. And then just to round off that team of the week, I think we'll throw in there as the fifth player, Caelan Dobney, who was the player of the match for the main TNT Sports game at the weekend, Loughborough's win over Derby. Caelan Dobney scored a brilliant goal as well from a long way out, and I thought, as I said, with Diogo lose from Maidenhead, I think that's probably the best that I've seen him perform. Caelan was an exciting player on the day and another player with a bright future ahead of him. So Jack Walsh, Diogo lose, Aaron Carter, Robbie Dean, and Caelan Dobney make up 5 for the team of the week. It's again a really strong 5, and as it has been. But what I would say is it was difficult to pick the team of the week this week. We're perhaps not as obvious as the previous weeks have been with players either scoring all the goals for their team, Sam McGrath in last week, or 4 or the like. But yeah, there's our team of the week for this round of fixtures. Well, thank you for joining us both. I've really enjoyed your company tonight, and hopefully everybody watching at home will have enjoyed the interviews, the exclusive interviews, and watching the highlights back of the games. Henrique, just to come to you for any final thoughts on the weekend's action.
No, thank you very much for having me. It's been great, and really enjoy watching you guys on a week-to-week basis. And but yeah, this week's been really exciting. Loads of goals. Repton's a nice place to play as well. So the whole atmosphere and the vibe and everything has been is really top notch. So yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you. And Juan, great to see you as ever, mate. Great to have you on. Thanks a lot. And what were your thoughts on the weekend's games in an overall way?
Yeah, like I said, a lot of goals scored. Not probably the best weekend for goalkeepers in general, but really exciting to see a lot of young English talent and see some really feisty games and some great goals as well, and see where that sort of playoff battle really links it. I think Manchester, Bloomsbury, Bolton have now sort of more or less cemented their top 3 status. So I'll be really excited to see what really happens in that 4th place spot between Loughborough, Maidenhead, 2 really exciting teams full of sort of British talent as well. That's only going to sort of benefit the league in that final running.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Again, it does look as though now it's a straight shootout for that 4th spot between Loughborough and Maidenhead. It could go right down to the wire in the National Futsal Series Men's Tier 1 as to who's going to take that final spot. Of course, it's all in search of the all-important playoffs at the end of this campaign. Thank you both for joining us. Thank you for joining us at home. That's just about all we've got time for. We'll see you next time on the NFS Highlight Show. Goodbye.